Hello friends, welcome to Awdhesh Academy. Friends, we have learned about attitude. We have learned that people have positive and negative way of looking at the same thing. And this attitude is different in almost every person. Now the question is, can we learn attitude? Or how can we learn to change our attitude? Or how can we learn new attitude in our life? So today we are going to learn a couple of theories which explains how we can learn attitude in our life. There are basically three theories of attitude change. The first is called classical conditioning, the second is called operant conditioning, and the third is called observational learning. Let us first learn about the classical conditioning. You might have learned about the classical experiment which was conducted by a Russian psychologist. His name was Ivan Pavlov. What he did was that he offered some food to the dog, and simultaneously there was a bell which was ringing. So when the food was offered to the dog, it started salivating, and simultaneously a bell was also ringing. And so what happened that the dog connected the event of ringing the bell with the offer of the food. And after a couple of times, what happened that even when no food was offered, but only the bell was rung, the dog started salivating. So this is very important and a very classical experiment which was done by Pavlov. The meaning is that the positive emotional reaction can be created to a person, object or event by associating positive feeling with the target object. So like the bell has nothing to do with salivating, but since food and bell got connected, so when the bell was ringing, the same action was repeated. In the same way, you must have seen that in different commercial advertisement, a product is presented and simultaneously a model is enjoying, looking very happy, laughing. As a result of that, what happens that we connect that particular item or particular goods or services with good feelings, and we start believing that this model is actually enjoying because of that particular item, and so this item is giving you pleasure and joy. So this is called classical conditioning. When we connect two different type of things and associate some positive feeling with a particular object, that is what is positive attitude. So often we use film stars or beautiful models to do this job because they impress us and we can connect that they are happy because they are using this product. The second important way of conditioning is operant or instrumental conditioning. What is that? We have also found that when you praise somebody who is doing something good, he is motivated to do that thing better. So whenever somebody does a good thing, you praise or give some reward. At the same time, if somebody is doing bad thing, you punish. So that person will fear the punishment and will not do negative things repeatedly. He will be thinking about the negative thing or the punishment before he is doing the wrong thing. In the positive side, sometimes what happens that you can remove some negative thing if somebody does a positive work. For example, many students do not want to attend the classes if the teacher is not very interesting. However, they attend the classes because there is an attendance requirement, 80%, 90% or whatever. In some colleges, what happens that they give you exemption from the attendance if your grade point is beyond a particular level, say 9 point. So if you get 9 point, there is no attendance requirement for you. Obviously, the person who is getting the 9 point will naturally be attending the classes and he must be a sincere student, but that unwelcome feeling or a painful feeling of attending a class which you don't like has gone. So that is also one way of motivating people, and that person will perhaps work harder to see that he gets 9 points so that he can get freedom from such type of requirement. So these are some of the examples. You will find that many officers issue appreciation certificate, or the government gives award and reward to the people who are performing very well. Often we give chocolate to our children so that they maintain good behavior, and we punish the bad behavior of the person or the child or the officer. So this carrot and stick policy also works in changing the attitude of the person. The third important factor is the observational learning. We are not that much influenced to change our attitude when somebody says something with words. But if somebody says that with action, we are often influenced by that person much more. A great leader is one who transforms the society, transforms the follower, not by saying things, but by doing things. So people generally form their attitude by observing the people around them. If other people are doing wrong, they will also do wrong. If other people are doing right, they will also do right. So if you want to change the attitude of the person, do the right thing. Mahatma Gandhi has very famously said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And he was the epitome of following this philosophy. So once there was a Congress convention in Kolkata, and it was very dirty after the convention, and he asked the people to clean, but nobody wanted to clean because everybody started delegating to his subordinates and the junior fellows. Finally, what happened that the work was not done. Then Gandhiji took the broom in his hand and started cleaning himself. That motivated the people, and then everybody joined, and then the whole ground was cleaned. So if you are yourself doing the thing, even without saying a word, people will follow you. So that is what is called observational learning. We are influenced by the people whom we admire, like our parents, teachers, and leaders. And whatever they do, we start following them because we want to become like them, and we want to become like the people whom we admire. So if you develop admirable quality, if you develop character, and if you do the right thing yourself, even without your knowledge, a large number of people will change their attitude and follow you because they want to become like you. So friends, today we have learned about the methods to change the attitude, how we can change our attitude. We have learned 3 different methods to change our attitude. I hope that you have understood this chapter very well. Thank you very much for watching the video. Friends, today we are going to learn about social influence. How the society influences individuals to change their behavior, attitude, ideas. This is a topic which is covered under this social influence. So let's understand first what is social influence. Social influence refers to the way in which individuals change their ideas and actions to meet the demands of a social group, perceived authority, social role, or a minority within a group wielding influence over the majority. That basically means that when we are living in a society, we have to adjust with the society. And in order to adjust with the society, we often change our views, ideas, actions, behavior, so that we fit into the social group in which we belong, or we adjust with our boss or the power of authority, or if there is a minority which is actually very influential because a few people who are succeeding, who are having a large influence over the society. So to change according to their perspective so that we also achieve success in our life. So there are many factors which affect why people change their behavior, and this is what is social influence. So a question naturally arises is that why people get influenced by the society? Why social influence works? So there are basically two reasons. The first is acceptance. We all want that we should be accepted by the group, the society in which we live, the people around us. We want them to accept us. And if we are having a divergent views, a different behavior, then we will not be accepted by them. So we change our behavior so that we get accepted by them. Second is cooperation. Cooperation is a very, very important attitude, because what happens that you cannot achieve any great result in your life without cooperation. So when people in a group have a similar views, then they try to achieve a common goal, move in the same direction, and therefore they are able to perform better, they are able to achieve great result. And so that is also important, because if people in the same group think alike, then there will be cooperation. If they think differently, there will be no cooperation and they will not be achieve their goals. Now, how the attitude of the people change? What is the process of attitude change? Let's understand that. The first step is compliance. What happens that if somebody asks you to do something, then even though you may not be convinced, but you still comply with the request. Try to comply with the request, and particularly when it is rewarding to comply with the request, or sometimes we comply with the request because we want to avoid any type of punishment. So the first step is compliance. Second is the identification. Sometimes we change our attitude because we want to identify with the people whom we admire. So when we change our attitude because of the influence of someone we admire, so suppose there is a boss and we feel that he is a very great boss, he produces result, he is liked by the people, and we change our attitude. So we identify with that person and try to imitate or copy that person. In the same way, if there is a celebrity endorsement of a particular product, then we try to buy that product. If he performs certain behavior, we try to copy that behavior because we want to identify with that personality. And the third is internalization. What does it mean? When we change our behavior, there is a possibility that we may not like it, but there is a possibility that we actually start liking it or loving it, the new behavior. And once we are convinced that yes, this behavior is a better behavior, this is yielding better result, then we internalize that change and it will become a voluntary action. So that basically means internalization, and when that happens, then you don't have to do any action by use of any force or any sort of motivation, because it becomes a natural action from you. Now we are going to learn about the different types of social influence. The first influence is conformity. We try to conform to the society. There are basically two types of conformity. One is called the informational conformity. In this case, what happens that we want to get accurate information about a thing or an event. When we don't get this information, we rely on others to provide that information. And once some information is available with others, we accept this information whether or not it is accurate. The meaning of this particularly informational conformity is that when suppose you want some information whether India is developing, whether India is corrupt or whatever. In that situation, suppose we don't have accurate information, then what we do is that we try to get the information from other sources, other people. And if the people in majority believe, let us say, that India is developing very fast, then maybe you don't have belief, or you don't have the conviction, or you are not agreeing with that, but nevertheless you follow it because that's the view of the majority and you accept it. You don't want to take a stand which is against the view of the majority. So that is informational conformity. The second type of conformity is called normative conformity. It means that people have the tendency to adjust their attitude and behavior to match with their friends and colleagues so that they are liked by them. For example, people follow fashion trends, follow the hairstyle of the other people, watching popular sports, movies or TV shows, or even they fall for smoking or drinking because they want to adjust with the attitude of their friends and the people who are around them. So sometimes you may not be interested, for example, in a rock music, but you do it because everybody else is doing it, and so you want to be like them. So you may not like to watch cricket, but you do it because people are going to discuss about the cricket. And then if suppose you are the only person who doesn't like it, then you will be feeling isolated, so you do it. So that's basically a normative conformity. The second important social influence is minority influence. What happens that sometimes a minority may influence the view of the majority, while majority may have persuasive value for others, but sometimes the minority may have the influence on the majority. And this basically happens when there is a minority group which is extremely successful, educated, or affluent or powerful. For example, let us say somebody is from IITs or IIMs, or somebody is from entrepreneur, a big entrepreneur. In that situation, what happens that we get influenced by their views because we consider them very successful. So even though they may have small numbers, but they have considerable influence in the society. This type of minority influence may also happen when an individual or a group present an opinion which is radically different than the view which is held by the majority. In that situation, because that idea is novel and contrary to the group norms, therefore it automatically gathers the attention of the people. And so what happens that sometimes when you are not agreeing with the view of the majority because the majority view doesn't appear to be correct to you, in that situation, if somebody giving a radically different opinion, so even though it is a minority opinion, it tends to get attention and it tends to get accepted by a majority of the people or a lot number of people. Then the third type of social influence is called self-fulfilling prophecy. A self-fulfilling prophecy is a prediction that directly or indirectly causes itself to become true due to positive feedback between belief and the behavior. That means there are some sort of rumors you can say, or some sort of prophecies you make which actually leads to fulfillment of that prophecy. For example, if suppose a rumor is spread or a news is spread that a particular stock is going to do bad in future, even though if this rumor may be false, but then what happens that if people start believing it, they will start selling that stock, and as a result what will happen that it will actually become worse. And so you have just made a prediction, but that has fulfilled because that stock has crashed, and this is something like self-fulfilling prophecy. And this can be applied in many fields of the human behavior. The fourth social influence is called reactance. Now, reactance is the adoption of the view contrary to the view that the person is being pressurized to accept. You see, what happens that if you are pressurized to accept a particular view, then one way is that you buckle under the pressure, accept that view, follow conformity, but there is another possibility that you react to it. As a reaction, you do just the opposite. So this basically is like anti-conformity. So reactance is basically a behavior when you feel that your freedom is restricted, or when it is coming from somebody whom you don't like or whom you hate. In that situation, whatever that person says or whatever that majority says, you just try to do opposite. Fifth type of social influence is called compliance. People do something that they are asked to do by another even though they may have options. So what happens in the behavior of compliance is that when you have multiple options to do something, but still if somebody asks you to do something, you try to do that because it is beneficial to you. So this type of compliance is done basically because you want to get some rewards or you want to avoid some social punishment, and that is the reason that even though you may not be convinced, but you think, okay, let me do it because it will be beneficial to me. The sixth important social influence is called obedience. Obedience is a form of social influence that derives from an authority figure. For example, if your boss says do it, and if the boss is sufficiently powerful and suppose he is in a position to influence your career, in that situation you just follow it. In the same way, when your father, mother, somebody who is having a great authority in the family, if suppose they say that you do it, maybe you don't want to do it, but you know that if you say no, then there will be grave consequences. So you don't apply your mind and you basically do it. So your mind is conditioned in a way that you just follow what that power of authority does. So in compliance, you believe that you have a choice and still you choose because of the rational consideration. But in the case of obedience, you feel that there is no choice but to follow the order of the authority. The next important social influence is called psychological manipulation. Psychological manipulation aims to change the behavior or perception of others through abusive, deceptive, or underhanded tactics. Now, in this case, what happens that a manipulator basically try to advance his interest by manipulating your thought, manipulating you psychologically. So this is normally done in the selfish interest of the person who try to manipulate. It can be an emotional blackmail. It can be anything, basically to influence you psychologically. But sometimes it can be used in the positive sense also. For example, a doctor may use psychological manipulation to advise you that you get rid of certain habits because it's going to, harm your health. So he can, use your emotions to actually convince you do something which is in your own interest. So basically psychological manipulations can be for your good also, but sometimes it can be for your disadvantage also. The eighth important social influence is called abusive power and control. Here what happens that the people use their power and influence to control their victims. They intimidate the victim so much that the victims start believing that they have no option but to follow the orders of the abuser. So this happens often in a family and a close relationship where let us say, a father abuses the child or abuses the wife, and he abuses so much that he gathers absolute control over the person, and thereafter whatever that person says, the victim has to follow. So this is also an example of social influence. Then the ninth important social influence is called propaganda. Now, propaganda is basically a deliberate dissemination of information, which is facts, arguments, rumors, half-truths or lies to influence the public opinion. Now, in the case of propaganda, what happens that the facts are presented very selectively to encourage a particular type of perception. Sometimes, it uses the loaded language to produce an emotional effect rather than a rational response to the information that is presented. Now, propaganda is a weapon which is used extensively by the political leaders to basically influence the opinion of the voters and the citizen of the country. So they will often do a propaganda which is negative for the opposition, where they will portray them in a very bad light, and at the same time they will portray themselves in a great light by highlighting their all the advantages, and so people start believing it. As there is a Nazi Joseph Goebbels who has said, repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth. So if you keep on repeating the lie, people forget that it is a lie and they start believing it to be truth. So that is basically the power of propaganda. The 10th important social influence is called hard power. Now this hard power is exercised by dictators, military rulers, and they actually exercise brute power to change the behavior of the people. So often the punishment is so harsh that people know that they cannot defy the authority, and so they have to change their behavior. So that type of behavioral change is because of the hard power. So hard power has been exercised in communist countries, in many dictatorships, to transform the behavior of the society in general. So friends, today we have learned about the different types of social influence, and this is very important because when we want to change the society, we must know as to how we can influence the people, and we can use this to persuade the people to change, and we can use these techniques to have a mass level change in the society. Thank you very much for watching this lesson. Friends, we have learned about attitude. We have also learned about how attitude can be changed. Today we are going to learn as to how we can persuade a large number of people to change their attitude. So today we are going to learn about the theory of persuasion. The theory of persuasion stipulates that the people's attitude can be changed by suitably communicating the appropriate information to them. Theory of persuasion is a means of persuading people to change their belief, attitude, and habit. It's important for us to know that knowledge is the actualizer of action. If you have the right knowledge, you will do the right action, and if you have the wrong knowledge, you are likely to do the wrong action. Therefore, if we provide the right knowledge and the right information to the people, then the people's behavior can be changed. And that is precisely the theory of persuasion. This is also known as the elaboration likelihood theory of attitude. The example is advertisement. In the advertisement, you are persuaded to change your habit. It may be done by the government, it may be done by a commercial organization, but the purpose of an advertisement is to persuade you to change your behavior, change your attitude. There are broadly two cognitive routes of changing the behavior or theory of persuasion. One is called the central route. The central route means when you provide the data and then motivate the person to draw the right conclusion. So through the data you prove that something is good and something is bad, and therefore the person gets convinced that he should do the right thing. You must have found that many car companies or many advertisers give comparative analysis of the product made by different companies. But these data sometimes be misleading because people will give only the partial data and not the full data. That is why every car company will prove that their product is the best. So this data is also not trusted blindly by the people because they know that the data can be manipulated. However, for a rational person, data is the most authentic method of believing that something is better than others. The second is called the peripheral route. The peripheral route means you present an stimulus signal such as a model or an attractive person who will influence the person emotionally. You must have found that in most of the cases, some attractive model, some trustworthy person is giving a message, and we tend to believe on the message because we are swayed by the attractiveness of the person. In that case, people don't look at the content, people look at the person or the source of the message, and they are believed or they are persuaded by the person. There are various aspects of persuasion. Let us understand them. One of the very important aspects is the object of the attitude. That means the things, persons, groups or idea which is going to be communicated. The message or the information, the manner in which it is to be delivered, the messenger who is going to deliver the message, and the target audience. Based on all these factors, we decide how to persuade the people. You should know the audience characteristic if you want to persuade the people. A message will be different if it is to cater to the rural audience. It will be different when it is to cater to the elite people, to the urban audience. So depending upon the audience, you have to tailor the message. It has been observed that the people with higher intelligence are unlikely to be persuaded by one-sided message, because these people will always apply their logic and their rational mind before deciding anything. It is also very hard to persuade the self-esteem people, the people with a high self-esteem, to accept new attitude. The reason is also very simple, because these people of high self-attitude are the people who have a lot of confidence over their own attitude, and they are unlikely to change that. It has also been found that the state of mind plays a very important role and can be productively used to influence the people. For example, if there is a match between India and Pakistan, let us say, and India has won, then naturally the people's mood is very good. And in that situation, if a message is conveyed by a cricketer, it will have much more impact. But if the team has lost, the situation will be just opposite. So, the emotional state of the person or the mood of the person is also an important factor for giving the message. Interestingly, it has been found that the relationship between the self-esteem and the willingness to change in attitude is not a straight line, but it is curvily linear. The people with average self-esteem are the people who can be easily persuaded. The people with high self-esteem can't be persuaded easily, and the people with the low self-esteem also can't be persuaded easily. The people with the low self-esteem generally have low self-confidence and low trust over the other people, and so they are unlikely to follow the message. In the same way, the high self-esteem people have a lot of confidence on themselves, and they are unlikely to listen to other people. And average self-esteem people are the best people to be persuaded. The next important characteristic for theory of persuasion is the source characteristic. Who is giving the message? The expertise, trustworthiness, and the attractiveness of the person who is delivering the message is also very, very important. If you are talking about a medicine and a person who is a doctor is giving the message, definitely it will be taken with more trust and belief. A sportsman talking about something which is related to fitness and sport will be accepted much more easily. Similarly, if somebody is trustworthy, people will trust what he says and what message he gives. Similarly, attractive people are the people who will be able to persuade most of the people because they are swayed by the attractiveness of the person, and instead of looking at the message, they look at the messenger and get persuaded by that. Let us understand now about the cognitive consistency. Cognitive consistency means that people try to be consistent in their behavior, views, and their attitude. If there is a difference between our attitude, our views, and our behavior, it gives rise to cognitive dissonance. What is the meaning of that? Let us understand that in little detail. Suppose you are a smoker and you believe that smoking is very harmful to your health, but you still cannot leave smoking. Then there will be a inconsistency between your attitude and your behavior. There will be conflict. You will be facing a lot of trauma because you want to leave it, you can't leave it. Therefore, there are two options. One option is quit smoking. Now both are consistent with each other, your thoughts and your action. The second is that somehow you change your attitude, your behavior toward smoking. And if you believe that smoking is not as harmful as it is projected out to be, because many healthy people are also smokers, smokers also live long. If you can persuade yourself like that, then again the inconsistency can be removed. So please remember that dissonance means disharmony or inconsistency. If there is inconsistency between our actions and our attitude, then that is cognitive dissonance. And we should reduce this tension by aligning them together. Let our thought, let our behavior be in line with each other, and that will remove all sort of dissonance and make our life peaceful, better, happier. So today we have learned about the persuasion techniques which are used to change the attitude. We have learned about the cognitive dissonance, how we can lead a consistent life where our actions and our attitude are in tune with each other so that there is no conflict within. So friends, thank you very much for watching the video.